You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Howdy do, buckaroos, and welcome to Comics with My Kids podcast, the official podcast for the comicscornerbox.blogspot.com. I'm your host, Matt D, and with me today is...
Logan D.
Here we are on our 13th installment for the summer reading promotion. Logan, what is our book this week?
Cat Kid Comic Club Book 4, Collaboration.
By...
Dave Pilkey.
All right. So this is the next in our book before the end of our summer program. We got one more book to go after this. So let's go ahead and dive into Dave Pilkey's Cat Kid Comic Club. So Logan, you want to go ahead and give the listeners a little bit of a brief background to books 1 through 3? Just to bring everybody up to speed.
I don't remember. Well, so Cat Kid is a character from Dogman, and he decides to create his own comic club, and the club is made up of a bunch of little frogs, and so they all make comics. But throughout the story, like, things get hard for the dad, which is Flippy, which used to be a bad guy, and now is a good guy.
Gotcha. Each of these frogs make their own comic book, but weren't there two specific frogs in the last book? I want to say Melvin and Naomi, who made a comic book, and they were looking to get it published?
Yes, and it had gotten published.
Okay. So then when it ended, where does this book pick up from?
So now that the book has been published, everybody got $50 each, and everybody was all excited about it, except for Melvin and Naomi. They were sad because they felt like they had done a lot of work and only got that much. Because the rest of their money had gone to their college accounts.
Oh, okay. Well, that's always good. It's always good to save money for college. So then, what happens next? What's the first mini comic that we run into in the book? What's the story?
Well, before they get to the mini comics, Melvin and Naomi, they want to have more responsibility, and so since they broke Flippy's phone, they took it to the repair shop, spent their own money to repair it. And then the rest of the money, they didn't ask to go to the candy store, but they had yelled in the distance, even though Flippy couldn't hear them, "Can we go to the candy store?" And so since they did not hear the answer no, they just went in.
Who just went in? Was it
Melvin and Naomi?
Okay. So what does that have to do with the repair shop?
Well, after they had a little money left, so they spent the last of their money there.
I see. Okay. All right. So then how does that segue into our first comic then?
And then, wait, where is that? Oh, there was a comic before that. So, before that, they had
Who's they?
The other kids, had to clean their rooms, except for 4 who had already cleaned their rooms.
Okay.
And so, their first story was, Baby Flippy, which was a false story about, Flippy when he was a baby.
I see. So then, after that book is when you get in. After that comic book story, that gets into what? Into the repairing the phone?
Oh no, that story gets into the next comic book.
All right. So then, what's the next comic book?
The next comic book was a haiku one that was basically just a bunch of boring pictures.
Boring pictures?
Yeah. Still not too sure what's going on.
Gotcha. So what's going on in the overall story, though, that each of these little stories are tying into?
So then after all of them had cleaned their rooms, all the frogs had cleaned their rooms. There was 2 frogs that didn't clean their rooms, so they started to clean the rooms, and then they got an idea for a comic.
And that comic was?
Frogzilla.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Tell me about Frogzilla.
So originally they were going to make it just like Godzilla, and but instead they made a parody.
Okay. So what happens to Frogzilla? Does he destroy Tokyo?
Well, instead...
Or is it
So
Frokyo?
Frogzilla, so there's these two kids who were featured in a different book, and they were called the Time Wasters.
Oh yeah, the Time Wasters. I remember that.
Yeah, so they got in trouble for, playing on their phone, and they had to dissect a frog, but they wouldn't do it because they were frogs.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I'm sure you probably wouldn't want to cut open somebody.
Yeah.
But all right.
So then they had to clean up the science lab, and they took their phone with them. So they had just thrown away some stuff. They threw away the dead frog because they didn't care about it.
All right.
They found some growth formula. They just threw that away. And dangerous atomic waste, they also threw.
Oh, that's not good. Dangerous atomic waste. That always leads into changes in biochemistry. Next thing you know, you're getting like radioactive spiders biting, guys like Peter Parker.
But instead, since it was also mixed with the giant one, the frog had become humongous.
Oh.
But then they weren't mad because it destroyed their school and started destroying the city. They were mad because they lost their video game.
Oh, really?
And they were complaining about he was selfish.
Then what happens?
And what I think is cool is they call the cops, and it actually has Dogman and Chief in there.
Well, of course it does, because all they know about cops is Dogman and Chief.
Yeah.
Who's that? Is that Sally Hadoff, or?
Sarah.
Sarah Hadoff, okay. So how does Frogzilla wind up, how does that story end?
So, it ends by, so Dogman and Chief get eaten by Frogzilla, and the Time Wasters have to save the world from it, but, they just ended the comic book there on a cliffhanger.
I see. I noticed they said that, to be continued in Frogzilla versus Mechazilla.
Mecha Frogzilla.
Yeah. All right. So then, what happens in the overall story? Now that we've covered one of the many books, what happens next with Flippy and the kids?
So
does their book get published? Oh wait, no, you did say that their book was getting published. Did they actually get to see the book get published?
Well, that's the whole reason they got the money.
Right, but I mean, do they get to see the final copy, how it came out?
No.
All
They
right.
just know it got published.
I see.
But before that does get published, that leads into the next comic. What's it called? I can't find the name. Chubbs McSpiderbutt.
Oh yes, Chubbs McSpiderbutt. So what happens with Chubbs? How's our buddy old Chubbs doing?
So, in the previous book, the big tough guy had his head knocked off and then destroyed, and so now he has a big baby head.
Oh, that's right, big baby head, and weren't they part of the Rude Crew or something like that, or?
They were called the NVNS, Not Very Nice Club.
That's right.
But what's funny is, the one in charge is not that smart, and he doesn't know how to read, and the one button is Start Engine, which is on top, and the bottom one's Launch Missile.
Oh, so let me guess, he pushed the wrong button?
Yep, and he launched it at the Heads R Us place.
Wait, is that where
That's where they buy the heads.
they buy the heads? Nice.
Yep, and it was blown up, and that was the only place in the world.
Oh,
So
really?
So then that guy with the big head was stuck there.
Oh, geez. It's like going to Spatula City and needing a spatula, and then all you do is blow the place up.
After getting well, first you get a bad spatula, so you go back to get a better one, but accidentally blow it up.
Oh, that's not good. All right, so what else happens to Spiderbutt?
All they do is eat sushi and play video games, and then they see that the place has been exploded, but then they realize that all the other supervillains all the other superheroes have had their parents killed, and they don't think they were ready for that kind of violence, so they just went back and kept eating sushi and playing video games.
Nice. All right, so how does our story end?
So it ends with they ditch the guy with the baby head.
Okay.
And then that just ends.
Okay. So what leads into our next mini comic?
So then they ring the bell and they.
Well, hold on. You're doing that vague
so
again.
First,
Let's have some names.
So Flippy rings the bell, so that all the frogs come. They got the contract, and they didn't get to sign it because they're kids, and everybody got paid. And that's when they got the $50 and did all that other stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So.
Well, then, instead of going any further into the story, we'll leave it so that, the reader can be surprised as to how it ends with Naomi and Melvin. Why don't we go ahead and dive into which mini comic book you like the best? Which one do you like the most?
I can't choose. I like them all.
Oh, really? Well, what about that one with the super fail? Was there another super fail in here?
No.
What? But wasn't that left on a cliffhanger? Was it like the world destroyed and then taped back together again?
Yes.
But we still don't know what happened after that?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, what was another one that you liked?
But my favorite one was probably called Run, Little Baby Run, because, so, the one lady tried to order stuff, and...
Okay, which lady? You gotta set the characters
the mom
up.
in the book, she wanted to order from what was like McDonald's, and she had bad cell phone service, and she wanted 2 large french fries and a super-sized shake, but since they didn't hear that, they wanted 2 large... They thought they wanted 2 large French flies and a super-sized snake.
So what showed up?
So they called France for giant flies and bought a supersized took a supersized snake from the zoo.
And then what happened?
And then when they got there, they started chasing the little baby, but he had blown up the snake with helium.
So did it float away?
Well, almost. First he made it look like a dog, and it looked like a giant dog, and so the flies thought it would make a giant poo, so he threw it, and they floated off into space.
How do you make a snake into a dog?
So, since it was blown up with helium, he twisted it up like a...
like a balloon animal.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, now I understand. So which one has which art style do you like in the book? Which one tends to be your favorite?
I liked the one with Baby Flippy.
Okay. Why is that? What about that particular art style do you like?
Well, because it looked cool, and they had supposedly done it on a computer.
Oh, okay. So what other things do you like in the book before we wrap this up? What keeps? Let me ask you a different question then. What keeps bringing you back to these Cat Kid Comic Club books? What really grabs your attention?
Just the curiosity to see what happens next.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, if you had, our rating system: buy, borrow, or bust, where would Cat Kid Comic Club Book 4 fall?
I'd give this a borrow. It's a good book, I like it, but it's not as good as the Dog Man's.
Gotcha. All right.
Wait, is the plural of Dog Man, Dog Men?
Well, you're talking about a character for a book, so it would have to be Dog Man Books.
Okay.
So,
makes more
but if you
sense.
had multiple dog man, then that would be dog men.
Okay.
Into the Dogman verse?
More like the doggy verse.
Oh, nice.
We still have yet to see that movie, though.
Yeah, we do.
I really
All right,
want to
well,
see that.
I know I didn't get much of an opportunity to read the book yet, but I'm actually looking forward to checking it out after you've reviewed the book. I definitely think the Chubbs McSpiderbutt is funny. So I'm going to abstain from voting as to to give a review as to what's it's a buy, borrow, or bust. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this in the next couple of days.
I'm definitely not abstaining. I like to keep my shirts stain free.
Funny guy. Leave the dad jokes to me. Well, folks, thanks for listening to this episode of Comics with My Kids podcast. Check out more episodes at thecomicscornerbox.blogspot.com.
Leave us a rating or review at Apple Podcast or Podchaser.
Follow us on Twitter for all of our episode posts and news at Comics with Kids.
Also check out our Facebook page, Comics with My Kids.
And finally, you can email our show at comicswithmykidspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll put your name into a drawing for free comics.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of our summer reading promotion. Check out our website for the full list of this summer's book.
And next week is our last week, our final book.
And we might be having a special guest.
We might be.
If he gets back to us in time.
Yeah. So, but our final book is going to be Investigators, book 6, I think.
I thought we already did 6. Whatever comes after Braver and Bolder.
Yeah.
Whatever the next one is.
Check out our Facebook post for it. All right, folks. Well, have yourself a nice night. We hope you hear our next show in a week's time.
Goodbye.
Good night. That's it. Just goodbye. No long soliloquy on how it's not nighttime when they're listening to this.
Kind of gets boring.
Oh, I see. I get it. Okay, fine. Good night.
And I
Good
don't like
afternoon.
being made of silicone.
Okay, talking to the microphone. What did you say?
I don't like being made of silicone.
Silicone.
Because you said silically.
Soliloquy.
Because it sounds like silicone.
Yeah, it's not that. All right. Good night.
Later.